Hey, I'm Stefan from Synergy, and today's podcast is with Josiah Middaugh, the Team Synergy Pro Team Manager, and Calvin Zaryski, who of Canada, who is our age group team manager. And welcome.
Thank you.
Stefan, thank you.
It's great to see you both. We've known each other for quite a few years, and Cal and I have had some interesting racing together. And Josiah, you've known Cal for a while?
Yeah, I have. I think Cal and I met at maybe Xterra Canada or one of the Canadian races quite a while ago. Was that Whistler, I believe?
Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
Whistler National Championships, but it was part of the World Circuit. Correct. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. Those were
Yep.
good
So
times.
I think we all met through Xterra at some point. Stefan, one of the first things I remembered was you telling me, maybe it was 2013 or something, if I would have shaved my face, I might have won that world championship in 2012.
That's right. Everything counts.
Everything counts.
Yeah. Yeah. Small
I remember that.
details. Yeah.
What's that?
Little small details add up, and that was one of them for sure.
Cal, I'll say one of the things I admire the most about you, outside of your insane consistency and dedication to a lot of hours of training, is just how meticulous you are about preparing for races. That all those races we've done in Maui where we had really horrendous conditions with mud and everything, and how
Yeah.
you go out the night before and get spikes into your bike shoes, and just it's amazing how those differences really paid off. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, nah, we're going to win this on fitness or whatever. And you don't. It's all about knowing the race. And I remember you saying that and preparing for it in a very specific ways with lots of hard training with weight vests going upstairs, because you knew that that type of race didn't just require high VO2, it required strength and toughing it through and getting up over these very punchy hills that often were incredibly slippery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And my philosophy was do everything you can to maximize the outcome, obviously. And when the World Championships were consistently on Maui, we always would encounter the poor weather and the clay mud and everything else. And I remember it was the night before the World Championships, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I met 3 or 4 professional athletes in the hardware store trying to figure out how to modify their mountain bike shoes so that we actually had clips, claws, anything that we potentially could use for running up muddy trails. And it was just a hilarious gong show in this hardware store. Yeah. But yeah, little details make a difference. And we've spent so much time training and preparing and spending all the money to get to a location to compete against the world's best. And the small details sometimes make all the difference for sure. Yeah.
In last year's World Championships, it turned into a duathlon, and you were well prepared for that first run. You had your two shoes. I just had one pair of shoes, and I just remember thinking how stupid it was to prepare so much for one race, go all the way, travel that much, pay all that money, and then show up not prepared for what could happen.
Yeah.
And not having that thought through. So I felt kind of silly with that. But I remember the worst part was you had chosen the right tires for that course. And I had just kind of stuck out with dry weather tires. And I came in just right after you, and I saw you running out. And I remember thinking how, I had come off the bike at least 10 times having to push up the hills. And I remember after the race, we talked about how you pretty much rode through the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I even recall actually messaging Josiah going, "Hey, what are you running? Like what's your thoughts?" And this is the whole concept of having a network of people, and especially people that are experienced, to give options or maybe at least shed some light on what they think. Now, obviously, from a professional standpoint, the race is a little different than the age groupers because there's a delayed start. But anyways, just accumulating information, like you said. And if you would have called me, buddy, I would have said, "Hey, you got to run mud tires, buddy. Like, you're screwed if you don't."
I think the bigger problem is you didn't call me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Josiah didn't either. I feel like you guys are conspiring here.
Well,
I
you're
see
in
what's
my
going
age
on.
group, so. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
conspire against the Dane. I see.
yeah. That's right.
That's what's cool about Xterra. These courses, you can, what I always want is an even playing field for everybody, right? So you want to make sure at least you're on an even playing field with everybody, and then, I mean, the holy grail would be to have an advantage over everybody else too, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, there's so many moving parts, so many little things, but you don't want to be the guy that's at a big disadvantage.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's the truth. Yeah. So I know we agreed not to talk about world championships and everything because I'm the only one who doesn't have one in this forum. But I think it's safe to say, Calvin, you're probably the most decorated age group athlete in the world.
Yeah, like I have 10 World Xterra age group titles, and I believe that that's either equal to another gentleman. However, I don't think it's the most. I think uh, there's one or two athletes that have 11 in the able-bodied division, I believe. But yeah, I'm pretty much tied, and if I can get one or two more, I think I'm in that final class of having the most titles. So that's the ultimate goal, pretty much.
So we all live in America, the American continent, and there's an old fought tradition that as Native Americans, sort of, if you take the scalp of a world champion, you assume all his world championships.
Really?
So
You'll be
look out.
watching. So I'll be watching my back, is what you're
One of these
saying.
days, exactly. You may get one of those spikes in your back that you used coming up the hills.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing when I look back as to how many years I've been racing in off-road triathlon, specifically the brand of Xterra. It's been, gosh, I don't know, 15, almost 18 years of kind of pounding away. Same with Josiah as well. And it's usually such a great small community of people that we tend to always bump into each other at these races. And whether you win a world title or not, again, it's more about the environment and the race and the challenge and the people, of course, like what we're talking about. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's almost more meaningful in essence. Yeah.
So, Cal, I was thinking about this I mean, you have all of these age group titles. How old were you when you started triathlon?
Yeah, like I grew up in the beautiful town of Penticton, BC. I call it a city, but I mean, it's big enough to be a city. But yeah, that's where triathlons almost originated as a swim, bike, run event. There was certainly no off-road back then, but certainly on the road. And so I was probably 16 years old when I started doing that. I couldn't swim at all. Like literally, I was breaststroking, side stroking my first ever triathlon. And so that's when I first started swimming. And I loved to run. I was a runner by nature, and obviously the cycling just came along. But it wasn't until maybe even almost 10 years into doing triathlons, so when I was in my late 20s, where I did my first off-road when it came to Canmore, I believe. And I was so stoked to see an event that had I guess, my highlighted career of a cross-country runner, and then learning how to mountain bike, which was super fun and challenging, and then hopefully just surviving the swim. So yeah, it's been over 35 years, I think, of racing triathlon, and probably 30 years or 28 years of triathlon off-road wise, especially the Xterra brand. So it's been a lot of years kind of developing that skill set, certainly. Yeah.
And I remember that first race in Whistler where I met you,
Yeah.
that Canadian Championship. I believe you would have placed pretty high amongst the pros in that race. Was there ever any consideration to making that jump? You were
Yeah.
probably maybe 40 then, something like that.
Yeah, I was almost a master's category, and I was still going really well in my 40s. Again, just from years of racing and just the right type of training for the sport. And yeah, there was one or two times where I thought maybe I could make that jump, but I know Stefan was thinking, well, why don't you go pro, or get out of my age group? No, I'm just joking. No, it was that next level of commitment, but I really never believed that I was in that same category as yourself, Josiah. Like I just thought that I loved the sports and I was good, but I don't think I was at that level that you guys are at. So, but it was always a thought. Yeah.
Don't worry, neither do we. We're just
Yeah,
being nice to you.
yeah. Yeah, and it's, the one thing I'd say about Xterra though is, again, the way I trained for it, I didn't train like as if I was doing a road triathlon. I actually trained more for the off-roady sort of natural challenges of terrain changes and different weathers and all of those things. And so, Stefan, you mentioned that I was really famous for doing a lot of stair work and ankle weights and weight vests and that sort of stuff. And I just found out that the sport of off-road triathlon, Xterra, there's always a hill coming out of T2. Full stop. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. You rack your bike and you have a mile to 2 miles of all uphill. So I
Yeah.
thought, this isn't like a normal road triathlon. This is hardcore. This is pretty tough stuff. So I just basically adapted my training to specifically the off-road style of racing. So it made a big difference for me.
I honestly feel like every off-road triathlete could learn so much from you, all the pros as well, because
Yeah.
you just have a unique take on it, and you've done so many, and you've performed so highly in every one of them.
Yeah, I'm the old Rocky Balboa, when he goes to the Soviet Union and trains
Yes.
under, bad conditions and just makes the most of it. Really, that's what Xterra off-road triathlon is, really.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. That is your approach to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm in Canada. We don't even have swimming pools here. We live in igloos.
Exactly. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And so, Cal, how has your training changed from your 20s to 30s to 40s? And what are you, 70 now?
Yeah, no, I feel 70. Interesting enough, I was thinking about this, and it's true. I feel quite a bit older now. I'm 55. I will be in 2 weeks. And, I was really doing well through my 30s, learning more about the sport, learning how to train for it. And then I figured it out in my 40s. And so even in my 40s, as you guys know, I was sort of racing for some overall placements, but I was pretty resilient through my 40s. And then as soon as I flipped into my 50s, that's where I had to be a bit more sensitive about the recovery aspect. As we know, when we get older, we can typically almost load as much, but the recovery certainly is almost more important. So I would go from the typical drilling it almost every day to now only doing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sundays as my heavy training days, and making sure my Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays were lighter. And to me, right now, that's more my formula for training. I mean, not every week, but certainly that's my model that seems to work for me. Yeah. But it has changed. I'm definitely older, and I can't tolerate the same stuff I did in my 30s. That's for sure. Yeah. How about you guys? What do you think has changed in your trainings?
I'm more an off the couch kind of guy, as Josiah well knows. I wish they had that category. I would kill it
Yeah.
there.
So, and I'm 44, so I'm definitely kind of in the process of learning what that means to, adjusting the training load and,
Mm-hmm.
the space between the high intensity efforts. I kind of, my kind of bread and butter workouts that worked for me really well in my 30s don't work quite as well right now. It's not the workouts themselves, but the spacing, right? So I
Yeah.
used one of the big staples of my training was these back-to-back, threshold sessions that I would do. And I'm not 100% sure if it's that I lack, maybe I kind of exhausted that type of training for myself, and I'm not that motivated to do it. But I think it's also partly that I don't have that same adaptation to that type of training, and I need a little more space between, for sure.
Yeah. And that inner voice is saying, maybe this is too much, and you kind of know, well, I'll see if I can get away with it. And then it backfires on you. And then you sort of learn, and then you go, okay, well, maybe I put it in the wrong place in my lead up to my big race. And so the sequencing of where you put these things is the magic. It's just, can we handle it or can we not? Because I agree with you. It's almost like this big concept of the Norwegian model where they're doing 2 threshold workouts in a day. And I look back going, I was doing that in my 20s. There's nothing new there,
Yeah.
but it's, and like what you're saying, but now, can we still do that in our ages of, late 40s and late 50s? And it's debatable whether or not we can do it. I don't think I can anymore, but yeah, some can.
Yeah. Yeah. And no point in doing it if there's no benefit too, right? Sure, you
Yeah.
can do it, but is there performance benefit to it? And probably not. Right.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's always a risk reward scenario anyways, right?
Right. Yeah. And in Stefan's situation, he hears a person that's extremely busy. And so maybe not have that time availability to spend more time in zone two, doing the base work. Whereas you think, well, then I'll just do everything in zone four, zone five. But again, as we get older, eventually that model it backfires as well. We end up getting injured, or we just get too tired, and then the motivation wanes. And then the next thing you know, you roll up on the race day and you go, I'm just going to go and do it for fun. you know?
I think one of the things that are fascinating about the two of you is that you are also coaches and have your own thriving coaching businesses and have been doing it for a really long time.
Mm,
And now that you're experiencing basically what a lot of your clients go through, it really hones your coaching skill because you know firsthand what's happening and how you have to adjust your training to get the most out of it without doing what you used to do that maybe not be as efficient, on a more worn out body.
yeah. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And it's good to know, like you said, through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and now into my 50s, how my training has changed. However, my lifestyle, just like Josiah's, because we are full-time coaches, our lifestyle is very active too. So we have a bit of a beneficial sort of environment where we can constantly do lots of training volume in zone one, zone two, which adds up to our total volume again, which supports our ability to be a bit more aggressive with our training. Yeah. But no, that's a really good point. We do learn as coaches as we age ourselves, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always thought it's really important, important for a coach to have a lot of different places that they're coming from and realize that every athlete's an individual, and
Yeah.
you may be completely dialed in on what works for yourself, but try not to just broadly apply that to everybody else. And you learn pretty quickly, if somebody needs more recovery, or if there's a certain type of training that is very difficult for them, if it's short VO2 max intervals, or just the zone two, if somebody does a zone two workout, like, oh, that was really hard to stay focused, maybe that's a really important place where they could get a lot of benefit. And so, yeah, try not to. I really have a hard time with the coaches that see everything as black and white, or say this is the way, this is the only way, and realize that there's a lot of different ways to get to the same destination.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Does
And
it
time
still work
availability
with
too.
with those RAM tests
What's that?
where you do that lactate test and you can see how the curve
Yeah.
comes out and how much where you're weak. Do you need more zone one, zone two?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, from a lactate curve, you can predict, or you can illustrate what people's strengths are, like bigger bases with no high end. And that's the uniqueness about Xterra or off-road triathlon, is that there's so much, I guess, a mix of different components that are critical for good performances. Like you have to have that base and foundation in that body structural resilience, but you need the high end. Like you've got to be VO2 max, threshold, all of those components play a massive role in the outcome of a race that's in Mother Nature, right? So that's where it gets a bit confusing when you try to um, do the training and set up the training sequencing. So that's the beauty about this unique sport, is that it has every energy system, every asset as an athlete needs as an endurance athlete. And that's what makes it so cool to coach as well. And
Yeah.
like you said, Stefan, like you need to identify potentially where the weaknesses lie in that one athlete, And then now you need to motivate them to address those weaknesses. And that's what Josiah is saying too, is that you have to do an analysis on that one person, and that program is completely different from any other athlete that we're working with. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that.
And the hard part is for us as athletes to assess our own weaknesses and address those, because we never like to do them, right? It's like, okay, got to go and do those mile repeats or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when Josiah used to coach me, and he would prescribe a certain hill repeat workout, and how amazed I was when the workout was over, how perfectly timed it was for what I needed right then,
Yeah.
and how the pace or the heart rate or sometimes it was a power workout, and how perfectly tailored it was, where it seemed like maybe this is too low in the beginning, but I'll stay disciplined with it, and then it was just exactly the right amount.
Yeah.
And it was a good wake-up call to just understand the big benefit of having a dedicated coach that really understands where you're at from a
Yeah.
scientific perspective.
Yeah. And the next step would be for you to tell him that it was perfect. Like, it was challenging. It was
I don't want to give him
perfectly
that kind of
timed.
kudos.
Yeah. Because
He
he
gets
needs,
plenty of kudos all the time.
right. Well, that's the thing. Just call him up and start harassing him, just
What I
because
just
he's got nothing to do.
Yeah. After a bad result, I just blame it all on Josiah. It's like, what the?
Yeah. The coach takes the fall always, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, and that's where some of these metrics can kind of come into play, where you might not know if you didn't have power on there. And, a pretty simple mistake that a lot of people make, if they're, say they're doing some long hill intervals, and, that first one is 20% further than all the rest, right?
Yeah.
So you can make a pretty good guess what their power file looked like. And
Yeah.
if you actually had that, then you say, hey, you went out at 500 watts for that first minute, and your target was 280. Like, what's going on here?
We
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Yeah, those days as we get older, those days of having that first interval exceedingly our targets, those days are gone. Like, I need 3
Speak for
intervals to
yourself,
get to
Cal.
my
I
target,
love it.
and then I can sustain it. But I need those 2 or 3 as the warm-up intervals, if you want to call it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Cal, do you have any big events planned for next year
Well, yeah,
or this season?
this new season,
Yeah.
2023, obviously we're all kind of targeting the world championships, which have moved now to Italy, and Josiah raced last year. The venue sounds amazing. Very similar to what I have here in Canada, which is Canmore, nearby. So it's more of a Rocky Mountain, sort of wet, kind of nice, sort of hard mountain biking stuff. So that's the goal. So that would be September 23rd. And then, leading into that one particular race, I'll probably pick and choose what I want to do. But, the concept of the Synergy team, too, is not just obviously for triathlon and off-road triathlon, but we're looking at any endurance events, as you know. So I'm going to embark on some gravel racing, obviously some mountain bike racing. I might even do a swim run. A swim run is something that I did 3 or 4 years ago that I really enjoy. I just find, again, great training activity, so to speak, race. But yet it's not as intense as getting on the start line at a world championship. So it's nice to have different choices where the anxiety level or the importance level is a little bit more laid back. So in general, yeah, it works pretty well. That's going to be my season. I'll just see how the months sort of go by, and you never know what I'll do.
What's your favorite Synergy product?
Well, as I said in his last interview, I love the wetsuits, and that's really the foundation of your company and your business. However, a lot of the other little accessories I find are very useful. So I'm a huge pull paddler. So, your pull buoy and the paddles are great. Obviously, the goggles are amazing. But all the different, actually, even the different types of wetsuits that you have. So, for instance, your new thermal wetsuit for me living in Canada, that's going to be killer for me because I'm a wetsuit weenie. I don't like cold water, and so having that protective buoyancy is the perfect thing. So yeah, I would have to agree with Josiah in terms of I think your wetsuits is the critical component for me because I just get cold. I'm cold all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting that that new thermal. I mean, I don't know if we can reveal this, but something happened in the production, and our new super flexible material got used in the arms, and it's amazing. We've had so many people
Nice.
say it's their favorite suit. Yeah,
That's good. Well,
yeah,
sometimes mistakes make great products. You
yeah,
never
yeah.
know.
It was supposed to be. I mean, it's just such an expensive material, but
Right.
we got it done. Yeah,
So that
Yeah.
might be the value, the hidden
yeah,
value there.
yeah,
And as you know, comfort is everything. Obviously, the fundamentals of buoyancy and staying warm. But again, if the wetsuit's not comfortable and you don't enjoy swimming in it, then what's the point, right?
yeah. No, that's right. And I think a lot of people could benefit from a more thermal kind of suit, especially if they have a long swimming season
Yeah.
outside. And we test all our stuff in Tahoe, and we swim into November, and it gets pretty chilly then. But it's amazing when you have all the accessories, the hoods, the gloves, the booties,
Yeah.
how you can stay pretty comfortable even in very cold, frigid waters. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I forgot to mention that the fact that you do have gloves and booties.
yeah,
Certainly, I've worn them like every time I start swimming in June. For us, our water is under 60 degrees, so it's
yeah,
58, 59, and that's cold. That's
yeah,
not fun. So with all the gear, it makes it fun. That's part of the game here. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's good for Canadians.
always. Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And Stefan, what are you going on the record for events that you're going to compete in this year?
I'm actually taking a little bit of a hiatus because we have so much work to do with
Yeah.
Team Synergy and with Synergy in general. We've been growing a lot, and we really want to be a world leader in our sport with the best products. And as you know, we've been very product focused, but we've never done much in marketing. And it's time to get the word out what Synergy is really about. And it's partially what we're doing with the pro team. Our main goal is to support athletes who dedicate their lives to our sport. That's number one. And number two is to glean some experience from them and some feedback on further product development so we could make literally the best products out there. We feel we're pretty much up there as it is, but you can always get better. And that's what we're all about. We just want to continuously have these incremental improvements to better performance.
Yeah,
And I think it's funny because as we become older athletes, we need better and better equipment to keep it going. And we know that drive ourselves, but it's also the drive of the customer. If you save 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there, I mean, it all matters, and we love that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I love putting that thought and energy and passion into the products, and
Hmm.
I'm so excited to see what comes out of our Synergy team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I agree with that. And I think one of our biggest benefits of the Synergy team, pro and age group, is there's a closeness for us to communicate with Josiah and myself, and then we can spread the word to you and the manufacturing so that we're getting real-time feedback. In other words, what could we make, what changes we could make to the equipment to make it better. Where I think most products don't have that connection. Like, yeah, kind of, maybe social media, but where you can kind of call us up and say, hey, that wetsuit's amazing, but have you ever thought about cutting off the bottom part of the lower leg so it comes off quicker in transitions? Just little feedback like that. But I think now we have a platform where we can get true real-time feedback that comes back to the manufacturers and say, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's actually try to do that.
yeah.
So,
Another very interesting thing that comes from this is that most products are made for average use. And when you deal with a pro team, you actually have to custom make some of these products for athletes.
mhm,
So the type of triathletes that do Xterra because of the mountain biking and also triathlon in general, they are very lean and they're very thin and they have small bone structure, yet they can often be tall. Similar to Josiah in a way, and you really, Cal. You're both very light. Unlike me, I'm more like a wrestler type. So I rely on close combat when we're out there on the trail.
yeah,
but but it has meant that we had to invent two new sizes that we sort of knew were there, but we felt they could fit the current size chart that we had. And we've come to realize, no, we have to literally come up with this very lean, tall version. And there's basically two sizes inside that. And it is a very rare body type, but it is the elite body type. It's the ones who win races. And so we don't recognize that in all our competitors' size charts. So we know that we're onto something by having it there, especially to support the elite athlete.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how many sizes you actually have in all of your different wetsuits. It's incredible, actually. And so, and your return policy to exchange to make it the right size, like it just doesn't get any better than that. That's for sure.
We only want happy customers. I mean, it just comes down to that, so I don't want any bad mojo out there. If somebody's not happy, we take care of it, and there's always a solution. And that's just who we are. We don't even have a returns department, like a warranty department. We don't get very many, so it's not a big deal. We, like I said, we just want everybody to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what I've always experienced, is just how nimble Synergy is, and how can we make this better? What can we do? And you can turn things around, and you can make things happen. It's just it's an elite triathlete's dream to have a company like that can do stuff custom for them, and then learn from that process and make their product better for the masses as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had most of the other brands as my sponsors over the years, so I have a lot of experience with how things work and how things don't work for the athlete. And so I never want to be that brand that that have that kind of,
And I will say, like, your input, I mean, you're running the show here, and when you, like, I know how picky you are with stuff, and I've heard you say so many times, like, oh, I really like, the feel of this and that, and like, what a high-end cycling kit should feel like, what you want out of your wetsuit and everything. And so it's just, you see that in the product. So it's pretty awesome to source the best materials and the best fit and make everything just dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, we try and use all the top brands products so we can learn from them, and also material choices and fitting and what is the best pad that others are using, to make sure that we're, if not better, at least on par, because there's no reason to put out a lesser product.
Yeah. And you, as the athlete, like Josiah is saying, the good thing is that you use your own equipment and you modify it, and you like, you're always changing it. It's very similar to Josiah and myself as being coaches, as being athletes as well. There's that better connection, I guess, in terms of we understand the small details that are going to make the difference, right? And so that's what I like about it, is that you're always out there grinding away. Like you said, some years you're fitter than others, and other years you're super fit. And so, but you're always on the start line. You're using your products. You're making sure that it works properly for what the intent was, and then making changes along the way. And I think that's a huge core philosophy that's going to make this team and your brand and all the products just super successful, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. Hey, so as we kind of wrap up, I'm really curious to hear what your vision for the Team Synergy would be. Come out.
Myself?
Yep.
Well, obviously, yeah, with Josiah handling most of the elites and all of that exciting sort of social media push, now the age groupers have to be the foundation of this team. So larger numbers, people using the product, spreading the word around the world. Whereas I think right now we're obviously trying to be heavy on North America, but we will branch out to the world and create this incredible Team Synergy family, I guess, is the concept. And then within that whole team aspect is having other companies align with us, so we have purchasing power. In general, like the philosophy is the new way. It's the new way of getting community support, promoting good products, and then also just recognizing performances, I guess. A lot of people work hard. A lot of people like to do well. And in this case, we can certainly recognize those people that do well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Cal, you summed that up well. I think a question that I think I want to hear is let's talk about the rivalry between Stefan and Calvin here. The elephant in the room, so to speak. So my question is, Stefan, if you had the ability to train as much as Cal, is that what you need? Is that what the secret, the missing link right there?
I mean, we all know the answer to that. What the result?
Well, and if Cal were to coach you, would you listen?
You know, that's another thing I love about Cal, because I think if he coached me, he would coach me to the best of his abilities and not from the perspective of rivalry. He would take
Yeah.
pride in me taking his scalp. But now that I've revealed what happens when I take his scalp, you know, and he loses
Yeah.
all his world titles, and
To get
maybe
the world titles. Yeah, I think actually, Stefan, you've got way more horsepower than I do. Like, I think probably your genetic makeup is probably a superior athlete than me. But I think as we all have these lives where, you know, some people are restricted with time, maybe even resources, whatever it may be. And just my world is pretty active in general. So, and then as Josiah is saying, like, I have a little bit of the firepower in terms of doing more time on research of training models and all of those sort of things. And I'm always living and eating and breathing what I do. So there's an advantage there. But if you took that away, I actually would be extremely intimidated and very scared that you would probably be on the top step. Actually.
but it
I
takes
really do.
discipline, and you got that discipline. You know how to put in 20 hours a week like nobody's business.
Yeah, again, it's the lifestyle, right? But I think as Josiah was saying, like a little bit of structure, or even myself, I've actually consulted my professor who taught me years and years of education. I sometimes bounce concepts and ideas off of him as well. So we all need somebody in our corner to potentially help us when we're trying to make decisions, I guess. And so, or evaluate whether or not maybe we made a mistake or whatever it's going to be. So it's nice to have those sounding boards as well. As people on this team synergy, they need to realize that they do have a sounding board. They have Josiah, they have myself, they even have you, Stefan, as the owner of the company, where they can ask questions and actually get some really solid expert advice. And so I think that almost could be the biggest benefit of this team, is to have a couple of people in their corner to help them make decisions. And you know, that's why we're here.
I think for another of these podcasts, we should have one where we share our most sacred secrets, you know, of how to do transitions and little, you know, shortcuts. Not on the course, obviously, but things we do that we know make for fast transitions and things you just
Right.
learn over the years, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of little nuggets that for sure, like Josiah, myself, or yourself, that we can
yeah,
let the team know of little things here and there for sure.
yeah. And there are a lot of fun stories too to be told. I think.
Yeah.
Like before we took this one, I gave one of my little stories, but I have lots of them. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for this. This has been awesome. We'll do another one real soon.
Sounds
Sounds good.
good. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right. Thanks. See ya.
Stay happy. Take care.